Hello, everyone. It is Thursday, March 11th, and I'm really excited to be here with you. I am drinking my tea. I am in my kitchen. I'm going to take a sip here before we get started and joining everybody for lunch. Um, so, if you've been following me, you know that over the last, I don't know how many episodes, I typically am baking or cooking during my lessons. And this week, I had all intentions of baking some chai tea cookies that are drizzled with dark chocolate. It sounded absolutely amazing. And it's a Trisha Yearwood recipe, of course. You know that I love her and I love following her and her recipes. Anyway, I didn't look at the recipe in advance. And so this morning as I was preparing, I pulled the recipe out and I'm like, I know I have all the ingredients. Well, I didn't have one ingredient, and it was a pretty important ingredient, and that was ginger tea. So it called for three tea bags of ginger tea. That you make the tea, you let it steep, and then that goes into the cookie batter. Well, rather than, because I'm not good at, okay, well, what other kind of teas do I have that would taste just as fine in these cookies? And I didn't want to mess it up because I am a rule follower and I am a recipe follower. So I have some black tea, I have some green tea, and I have my favorite tea, which is this caffeine-free raspberry zinger by Celestial Seasonings. But I didn't think that was going to work either. So today, rather than baking, I promise I will post the recipe in the comments section. But rather than bake cookies that probably wouldn't taste the way that I want them to taste, I'm just going to have tea with you as we talk about negotiations and we start this next series, which I'm really pumped about. You know, last week I introduced you or told you the story of Esther. Many of you may have already known about Esther, but some of you may have not. And so I introduced you to Esther and her courage and how she was extremely courageous in approaching King Xerxes and just stepping out in faith and doing what she was called to do, right? Mordecai, her uncle, told her, maybe you are in this place. Who knows that you might be in this royal position for just a time as this. And that's what I want to talk to you about with regards to negotiations. So as we start this series, this is the first episode in the series on negotiations. I wanted to introduce you to a mindset shift and how I don't know about you, but I kind of hated negotiations. Now I really like it. And I had to change my mindset in order to accept the fact that negotiation, quite honestly, can be fun as long as both parties win. I'm very competitive. It is true. You can ask my family. I'm very competitive, but I don't want to hurt a relationship. If it's going to hurt a relationship, then I don't want to have any part of it. And so growing up in the workplace, not growing up as a child, but growing up in the workplace, I didn't negotiate very well. I didn't even know what I could negotiate on, right? If my boss came to me and said, Melissa, we're going to move the offices and we're going to move you to this other cubicle, I would have said, okay, great. What's the deadline? You know, what do I need to do in order to move and be a good soldier? Because that's who I am. I'm a rule follower and I'm a good soldier. And where other people may have said, you know, I don't really want that cubicle. I want that cubicle. And they would negotiate where their workplace would be or workspace would be. And I just, a lot of us, I think there's a lot of us out there that run from negotiation and don't run to it. And so I want to share with you some tips on how you can be pretty comfortable with negotiation, or at least be more comfortable with it than you are today. Because we negotiate everything everywhere all the time, whether you're with your spouse, your partner, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your friends, your relatives, the salesperson at, when you're talking to Verizon on the phone, whatever. Life is your children. Life is negotiation, and we need to be comfortable with it. So I just want to tell you a couple stories as we get started here about negotiation with my family. Mike and I, we had 2 kids, Amanda and Nick, and as they were growing up, they're now grown children, adults, they're adults, and as they were growing up, we would go on family vacations. And we had to drive. He had to drive everywhere. Mike was raised, his mom and dad took him all over, him and his sisters all over the U.S. And they drove and they camped. So my mother-in-law would make the sandwiches and do all that kind of stuff. Rarely did they stay at a hotel. So it was bare bones vacations. When I grew up, I went on vacation in the summer when we were off school. I would go to my aunt and uncle's house, spend time with my cousins, fish and that type of thing. And we rarely went on a formal vacation. So when Mike and I were married and we had children, I said, you know what, I really want to continue the tradition that your mom and dad instilled in you. And I want to be able to do that for our children as well, because vacations are fun. But we had to drive, and we had a rule. And the rule was that wherever we would go to eat, it could not be a chain restaurant. And there were a couple times where we had no other choice, but the chain had to not be a chain restaurant from where we are from, right? So it had to be a chain that we weren't familiar with. But for the most part, the first choice was it had to be an independent restaurant, mom and pop restaurant, and a local kind of place with local type of food. And it got to be really, really fun. But I don't know about you guys, but if you have children or nieces and nephews, and the question is, what do you want for dinner? Typically the response is, I don't know. I don't care. Okay, then let's have Mexican tonight. We're going to have tacos. Well, I don't want tacos. Okay, so you do care, right? So there's this negotiation of where we're going to go to eat. And then Amanda would want to eat one type of food, and Nicholas would want to eat a different type of food. And so then there was another negotiation that had to go on. And we would joke, and I still think it's a really good idea, we would joke that we were going to start a restaurant chain that was called I Don't Know and I Don't Care. So you got your IDK and you got your IDC, and they would be franchised all around the world. I still think it's a great name for a restaurant. So if you're into starting a restaurant, that's what the name should be, because when somebody says, what do you want for dinner? And they go, I don't know. Okay, great. Let's go there. I think they got great food. Anyway, so that's an example of negotiation. You're always negotiating. Most recently, Mike and I are in the process. Our house is about 25 years old, and we're in the process of remodeling, very slowly remodeling the rooms. And so we are into the master bathroom, and it's old. And so I wanted to gut it. We've got a spa tub that nobody uses. Our shower is really small and outdated, and I wanted to just gut the whole thing and just start over. Well, we can't afford that. So Mike's like, Melissa, we can't afford that. Let's just paint it. A new coat of paint will look great. Okay, so here's the spectrum. He's way over here on, I just want to paint it. And I'm way over here on, I want to gut it and make it really cool. And so we have to negotiate and come to the middle, right? We have to, where are we going to, I have to give a little, he has to give a little, and we have to get in the middle. And that's what we did. So yes, we're putting a new coat of paint on. In fact, I'm starting to paint tonight. And we are not getting rid of the spa tub. We are not redoing our shower. So I lost there. But that's okay, because he has taken all of the fixtures, the towel rack, the toilet paper holder, all of the fixtures, and he has refinished them. He did some research, and you can paint, I had no idea, you can paint the bathrobe holder, the towel holders, the towel bars, all of that stuff. So he just took the finish off and then painted them a brown hand hammered paint, and it's spray paint. and it looks amazing. So we're going to be redoing our bathtub, but not to the extent I wanted, but more than what he wanted. So it was a win-win for both of us. And that's what we'll talk about, is this mindset shift. You know, there are two types of negotiations, and I think that's why most people who don't like negotiating, I think that's why they run from it. And that is that there's a competitive style and there's a collaborative style. Now, researchers say that women and men, girls and boys, are socialized. Boys are socialized to be competitive, and girls are socialized to be collaborative. I do believe there is something to that, but I also think there's probably some DNA that adds to that. That's just my unofficial, unscientific opinion. But girls are raised, the games we were raised playing were collaborative. They were social. They were, everybody kind of wins type of things, where the guys, the boys, it was more competitive. It was more win-loss. And that's where the term negotiation kind of gets a bad rap, because most of us think of a win-loss situation, and most women are relational, and we don't want to go into a negotiation where it's going to hurt our relationship with the other person. And that's where collaboration comes in, and a win-win style of negotiation feels so much better than one that is a win-loss, and where you're going to go into it to win it regardless of the relationship and the outcome of that relationship. And so that's where we just need to shift our thinking. Now, don't get me wrong, there are and will always be situations where negotiation's a win-loss. Like, I don't even know if it's a win-loss. When you're buying a car, you want to have the best price possible, but the car dealer wants to sell the car. So again, it's a win-win. You get a better price, they sell the car, right? So it's not a win-loss. So, but anyway, there are those situations where it is kind of a win-loss. But if you go in with the mindset of a win-win, where you're going to give up a little bit and they're going to give up a little bit, I think that everybody is a lot happier in the whole process. The challenge is when you're dealing with somebody who's a competitive win-loss kind of person and they just aren't going to give any, then we can talk about techniques and how to deal with that type of situation. But for the most part, that's not in fact, that is not what we're talking about today. We're talking about accepting and acknowledging and I don't know of any other word, but loving negotiation, because it becomes more of a win-win mindset and not a win-loss. Many people believe when you go into negotiations that you want to avoid conflict, because negotiations create conflict. And if you go in with a win-win, where even in a workplace, I did this quite a bit when I'm in sales, and I did this quite a bit when I worked for my previous company and was in a sales discussion with a customer. I would go in with okay, I know they need to win something. I need to give them something so they can win, and I can win. Otherwise, we're going to be at an impasse, and I don't want to hurt our relationship. And we shouldn't give up everything, right? We shouldn't give up everything, but maybe there's a bit of a discount that I need to give them because they need to show their value to their boss, and that they were able to, and to negotiate a lower price or extra services or whatever, whatever the situation was. So, okay. That's all I really had for the moment. I wanted 2 points that I really want to highlight. And one is that everything is negotiable. So like I said, when I was early in the workforce, if my boss came to me and said, "Here is your salary," I would say thank you. Or they would say, my raise, I would say thank you. Or if they said, here is the new location for your cubicle, I would say thank you. here is your, desk chair that is, however old or whatever it was, maybe it was a hand me down from somebody else who left, I would say thank you. I did not know or did not realize that everything is negotiable. Now, there's a time and a place, and you do not want to have that reputation that everybody believes when they come to you it's going to be an argument or you're going to have a counter or whatever. But if your boss comes to you and says, here's the plans for XYZ, here's the plans for your position, we're going to change your responsibilities to, XYZ, you don't have to take that 100%. You could say, oh, okay, I was thinking that maybe I could do this in addition to, or this instead of, or, and have that negotiation. And if you're the kind of person like me that is a rule follower, when the boss comes and says, this is what, these are the rules of engagement, this is what's going to happen, I would typically say, okay, until I learned, I don't have to say okay, that I can negotiate. Just because my boss is saying it, I can negotiate. It's never too late until it's inked, written out in ink or whatever the saying is. It's not too late. So everything is negotiable, whether, no matter how small or how large. So that's the first thing that I want to be sure that I highlight. And the second one is the mindset shift, which is to go from a win-loss, to go from the perception that negotiation is strictly a win-loss. But negotiation is or should be a win-win. It should be a collaborative effort where both parties or all parties win something. You're not going to win 100%. You have to be willing to come to the middle. They have to be willing to come to the middle. But it's a lot more fun when everybody kind of gets their way than if you go into the negotiation and it's a win-loss and you're walking out losing. That's not that fun. So here's my challenge for you. I want you to pay attention this week. Start right now. I want you to pay attention to any negotiation, anything that is negotiable, right? Whether that's personal or professional, and start with something small. But if you know that you've got a decision that needs to be made and you already know what the decision is that you want, but maybe you're talking to your spouse or to a child or to a coworker or to your boss, and go in with a win-win mindset. Don't go in with a win-loss. Don't think that just because it's your boss or just because it's if I'm speaking to younger folks, if it's your parent, that what they say goes. Yes, there's a time and a place, and you do have to read the person and read the room, but there is a way to continually negotiate. So start small. I wouldn't start this week with approaching your boss on a pay raise if you're not comfortable with that or if it's not appropriate at this time. But I would recommend that just start with something where there's a negotiation. You could be in a meeting. It could be negotiating a meeting time. It could be something very simple. Go in with a win-win mindset and see how it goes. And see, once it's like building muscle memory. So the more you do it, then the more you get creative at it, and you tend to enjoy it. I enjoy negotiations today because you know why? The other reason is that it's because it's problem solving for me, right? I'm solving a problem. We have a problem. I don't agree. I want this. That person wants that. And we have to somehow come in the middle. That's a problem. And so I want to solve this problem. I want it to go away. But I want both of us to be satisfied when we finish our discussion. I want both of us to be satisfied. And the one question you have to ask yourself is, can I live with it? Can I live with this decision? And if you can, and if the other person can, then you're there. You're where you need to be. You shake hands, or you fist pump, or you socially distance hello, or you hang up on the Zoom call. But if you can live with it, then that's good. You have to ask yourself, is this a solution that I can live with? If the answer is yes, fantastic, and celebrate. Absolutely celebrate. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to think about a win-win and going into just a small negotiation. I'd love it if you would share your experiences from the week in our Facebook group, and I can't wait to see you next week. So next week, we'll be talking more about negotiation and the art of anticipation, and how do we prepare for a negotiation. So I'm looking forward to that, and I hope everybody has a fantastic Thursday. Please do not forget do not forget Eleanor Roosevelt, who says, with the new day comes new strength and new thoughts. Thanks so much, and have a fantastic day.